All set. Good evening. The hour of 6 p.m. having arrived, I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of the Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the printed agendas are available in wall pockets just as you enter this meeting room. The public and other city councilors will be recognized to ask questions and make comments on agenda items under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. I will not recognize an individual a second time until everyone who wishes has had a chance to speak. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones and identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. Written comments from the public will be accepted at the city clerk's office until Tuesday at 1 p.m. Our minute taker participates remotely. Committee members, be sure to turn on your microphones when speaking. And if the minute taker is unable to hear, they will ask you to speak louder or turn on your microphones. We have a quorum. Everybody is present. Our one member is on an airplane, north, east, or west. Which way, I'm not sure. Item number 1 is acceptance of donations, the holiday family sponsorship.
Good evening. Natalie Darcy, Human Services Manager. I move that the Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee recommend that the city manager be authorized to accept donations associated with the city's 2024 holiday sponsorship program. Annually, the Division of Human Services contacts sponsors who will provide gifts and holiday items for families and older adults. The sponsored families and older adults are clients who have received assistance from the Human Services Department within the past year. Families who have children with special needs and persons who have been struggling to make ends meet are considered for sponsorship. The goal of the program is to provide holiday gifts, gift cards for those in need, who will then use their own resources to maintain housing, utilities, and essentials of daily living. The Human Service staff appreciates the support of the council for this annual project that provides happy holidays for all those we serve. Families are very appreciative and humbled by the generosity of the community. And typically, we assist anywhere between 250 to 300 individuals per season.
Thank you. Questions here from the committee? Members of the public? Seeing none, motion please.
This is a great program, by the way. Move to recommend the city manager be authorized to accept donations associated with the city's 2024 holiday sponsorship program.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? No one's opposed, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Next item is we have a letter concerning parking. Folks ready to?
There's a message here that should.
Yeah, okay, so the original signer is coming in later?
She's on her way.
Okay. We'll come back to that.
Thank you.
Cable franchise agreement. Deputy City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. So, for the second time in my tenure here at the city, I am coming to you with a franchise renewal. It's the franchise agreement with what is now Spectrum, which is a division basically of Charter Communications. The current agreement has expired, and that's okay. The law automatically keeps that agreement in. Keeps it active until it is renewed, so we're okay. We have been talking with Spectrum about what the new agreement might look like. We've been talking with council about what other municipalities are negotiating for agreements. We've been taking notes. We've try to look at what provisions in our existing or former cable television agreement might be able to carry over and what has to change. And so there is a list in your packet of some of the, what I would say are the highlights of what a new agreement might look like. And that is that the agreement would be for 20 years, honestly, with customers moving from cable television services to streaming services. I don't know that it will exist in 20 years, but this, if it does, this will get us there. Right now, Spectrum is required to install cable service to anyone who is with 150 feet of their existing cable system. With a new agreement, the standard terms are more like 200 feet. So we're expecting that, which is a good thing. The cable TV system would be extended to areas where there are 20 dwelling units or more per mile. It used to be 15, but that's not as concerning as it would have been to us 20, 25 years ago because their coverage is so good in Keene now. And so as we are developing housing as much as we can, I'm confident that we'll be in that 20 residences per mile measurement. The term, let's see, I already said the term, maximum franchise fee, right now we're at 3.5% for a franchise fee. That is a percentage fee that we charge, we collect from Spectrum, and they pass that on to their customers. So if a customer has a, let's say, a $50 cable bill, then they'll pay $1.75 for the franchise fee to Spectrum, and then Spectrum pays that to us. So that's where the revenue comes from that we use to support the community access station, which is now FACT, as well as the government programming, which provides for some of the things here, like the mics and the cameras and the control room. That can be as high as 5%. That won't change. That is actually the legal limit, and we are limited to increasing that no more than 1% in any 1 year. The city does continue to have the opportunity to request an audit of the cable TV revenue. The agreement would continue to require basic cable service, and a lot of people don't know that. I know that the cost of cable services is something that is hard for some people. The basic cable package continues to be an important option that may not show up when they are looking at their menu of options for cable TV, but it does continue to be an option that must be available to customers. So they get a very small list of channels, but they will continue to get their local TV channels. The agreement would continue to require that basic cable, we just said, the HD format channel would be available to replace current SD channels. So we have standard definition channel for our government programming, and some people complain from time to time when we have problems with sound or with the picture quality. I would love to say that we could just change that. We will have the opportunity to change that, but it comes at a cost, and it would require a special agreement with Charter or Spectrum to make that happen. And then we do expect the performance bond to increase from $10,000 to $50,000, which is a good thing. At the public hearing, I was asked a couple of questions that I'd like to try and answer. Right now, Spectrum has about 3,581 cable TV customers in Keene as of last week. That number is coming down as people transition to streaming. So our revenue has, right now we're getting about $175,000 a year. It was formerly over $200,000 a year, so we do see that starting to decline as well. And 86,000, just over 86,000 of that is paid to FACT. And then we also pay for utilities and the lease cost for the space they're using at the library. So those are some of the numbers. I have other information if anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Before we go much further, Councilor Remy has been able to join us from afar. Would you state where you are and what?
I am traveling for work in California. I know I have to state I'm not alone in this room, and people may be in it as I am at work.
Okay, thank you. Any objections here? Okay, we will, when we take a vote, it will be now roll call. So, questions for the Assistant City Manager?
I have one, if you don't mind. So Rebecca, you had mentioned the basic cable service a couple times now at the public hearing and again tonight. Could you give a little bit more background to that? What does that mean for the public? What does that mean with basic? Are you paying less money, you get fewer channels? What's the situation with that?
Yes and yes. It's the bare bones minimum package for the lowest cost. And I do not know what's included in that, but it's certainly not 200 channels, right? It is, I could ask for that information before next week, but it is very limited number of channels so that people who want to stay connected and know what's going on in the world can, but don't have to pay for the $100, $200 package. Mhm.
Okay, members of the public? Seeing none, motion?
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to negotiate and execute a renewal cable television franchise agreement with Spectrum Northeast LLC.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Oh, that's right, sorry.
Sorry.
Yes,
Start, yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Yes? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, yes. That's unanimous. Thank you. So we'll come back on the agenda to item number 2. And the signature of our letter.
Hello.
And your discussion concerns the amount of the fee for a parking ticket, if I
Yes.
understand your letter.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, shall I continue? Hi. I'm just going to read from here, if that's all right. I'm going to say, hello, my name is Jada Carlin. I lived in Keene for 8 years, and I own a small business downtown called the Gilded Mane. I'm here to bring change to the way Keene enforces parking violations and voice some concerns with parking in general. Keene's mission statement on their website for the parking division is that they are dedicated to providing safe, convenient, and accessible parking. My goal for starting the petition, it got 300 signatures in 3 days. And then I stopped forwarding it. I had some family things. But the petition was to bring attention and change to the fact that downtown community doesn't see Keene Parking Division as a group that is keeping us safe, that is convenient, nor accessible. The convenient part of it is that the parking garages for downtown employees for long-term parking is extremely expensive, ranging from $175 to $350 per quarter. We're in an economy where people are struggling to pay for rent, groceries, and gas, telling hard-working people of downtown businesses to dish up to $1,400 a year on downtown parking can be detrimental to their livelihood. Some businesses have to unload products and equipment, and the kiosk, you'd have to go to the kiosk, type in your license plate for 15 minutes, and then go back to your car, which is a task that's only going to take 15 minutes to unload that stuff. The meters were a more convenient option than the kiosks. Paying for tickets online is convenient, but the high price of $4 for each violation makes it extremely inconvenient and not accessible for lower income citizens of Keene. I do have a question regarding that later, or now, if I can. Does the processing fees are the processing fees for ticketing forwarded to the city instead of the payment processor itself? Because for each violation, say you have 2 violations, $30 totaling, at the end, when you're paying for it, it's $8. But usually when you're paying processing for some amount, the processing fee is $4. And why is it added on another time?
We'll pose that question to the deputy city manager.
If you'd rather, I can wait till we're done and just answer questions.
You want to get them all at once?
Want to wait?
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll wait.
All the municipalities in Keene have convenience of free parking, but when it comes to businesses, it feels like Keene is saying we're taking care of our own, and the people that bring the life to downtown are penalized repeatedly. Accessibility, we have a lot of elderly clients. I have a lot of elderly clients that come to our business and would like to visit downtown. And customers just in general, not just elderly, that don't like using apps, don't have apps, or can't walk long distances, say they didn't know that the meters were gone, which happened a lot. They parked far away from the kiosks. They went to the kiosk to pay, didn't know their license plate number. Now these people have to walk to their cars, take a picture of their license plate number, walk back to the kiosk, and then go into businesses. And it's just less accessible and less convenient for our visitors as well. And the safety measure of it is that Keene's long-term parking options are in high-volume and flagrant activity locations. I visited the Keene Police Department, and I actually have a map of the places that people would like us to park, the long-term parking map where you have the parking garages. There's a lot of flagrant activity going on in those spaces, and especially for people that work long hours at nighttime. People will sleep in the stairwells, and going around even downtown Keene in the gazebo area. I mean, I have to cross there every day if I were to walk to where they want me to walk, to park. And there's people that are intoxicated and tweaking out and kind of going crazy to where I don't want to be walking with a purse full of money to go to my car way across the way. So it's not showing us that Keene's taking our safety into account. There's less visitors eager to come to downtown Keene because of parking enforcement. The ones that are the backbones of our businesses, and even during the time of reconstruction that will be happening soon, they'll be less willing to come downtown if change doesn't happen. I don't think this conversation can be solved just with this that I'm bringing forward. I think it needs to be a continued conversation that needs to be worked, and it needs to be fair for all parties involved. I understand that parking tickets do need to happen to keep the community environment the way that it is, but the way that it's going on right now, it's not okay. And if Keene is wanting to revamp and reimagine downtown, it needs to start from the ground up, and that includes parking enforcement. I've actually taken the liberty of contacting popular surrounding towns and cities, asking their parking enforcement practices, what are their parking enforcement practices, and they all had one thing in common, is that they offer downtown employee parking programs. They're fair, they talk to citizens, and it shows that the citizens, they care about their citizens. So, for example, I talked to Portsmouth, Portland, Maine, Burlington, Vermont, and Durham, because I wanted to get in a couple of college towns in there. But Portsmouth, they have designated parking programs for employees at a lower cost in different zones for downtown employees. For downtown employees, it's $3 per session, and the sessions go all the way up to 10 hours, and that's per day. So you pay $3 a day if you're working 10 hours. Portland, Maine, residential and downtown businesses sticker program is what they call it. You pay for a sticker. You can do it at the time of registering your car or registering your business. And for residents, it allows to park for 1 to 2 hours in the zones that they allow without receiving a ticket. And I think that would be really nicely implemented in Keene for the high tax that we have. It would be nice for the residents to feel like, hey, I live here and I want to support downtown business. That would be nice. But for businesses, they can park for 8 hours. And they also have the same parking ticket fees that we have, is $15, and it's in Portland, Maine. Burlington, Vermont has free business owner / employee parking garages. And in Durham, home of UNH, they have 200 yearly parking passes for multiple designated parking areas. And in Keene, for example, as I stated before, it's $175 to $350 per quarter. Which is, it's not in the realm of possibility for people that are waiting tables, taking care of families, paying their rent. It's not sustainable, and that's the end of that.
Okay, thank you. Let's handle her question before we let other folks speak.
So I think the question is about the processing fees.
Yeah,
If you're talking about credit cards.
process being online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the processing fees for credit cards go to the credit card processing place. None of that comes to the city.
Okay.
And that's not something we can't control. It's out of our control.
Thank you. Others who would like to speak? And then we'll have comments from the committee.
I'd also, if you'd like to, to show you that map of where the cops said, I went to the police station, they marked it out of where they are deeming unsafe areas, and those are the main areas that you want us to park.
We have access to all of those. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dory Maston. I live at 326 Matthews Road in Swansea. However, I own a lot of real estate in the city. I was asked to join the meeting tonight by Jada. I just want to get out there that I was given just a few days' notice, probably just as much notice as everybody else, so I'm not saying I was treated unfairly. However, it wasn't really enough time for me to notify the other tenants that also have an issue very similar to Jada's. The other folks that are on, sorry, my pacemaker's going up. The other folks that have signed the petition, they have all schedules and plans just like you folks, but they just weren't given enough time. My request tonight is simply if we could put this on more time, which I know you don't want, but just to get more downtown opinions and views on maybe even solutions that would make everybody happy. But past that, Jada brought up tonight where the parking is for the community. I think it's great. I don't want the parking to change. I want more parking. So I don't want it taken, what we do have taken away. However, it is unsafe. And I don't think it's a surprise to any of you. KPD is out there. That is literally their chore in the morning. I know it. I assume you do. To go to these lots and to scoot everybody out of there before people start going to work and doing their thing to alleviate the complaints. It's bad. It's really bad. There's a serious problem. They're sleeping next to your cars. They're trying to get into your cars. They're approaching you for money. They're obviously under the influence of something, even if it's prescribed. They're not in their best place. It's not safe. And I say that to you with all sincerity, and I can also forward to you some footage that I have. It's not just the parking garage. It is the parking, the lots. The parking lots like similar to the one by Lindy's. I have video of folks coming out of there, walking up our alley behind Poorhouse by the registry. I have photos of folks sleeping right there along the building. I have a video from my own footage, my own dumpster. My maintenance man went to put garbage in the dumpster at 5 a.m. and 2 homeless are crawling out of our dumpster and they were sleeping there. And I have parking there. Even the parking that's assigned, our downtown is becoming, unfortunately, dangerous. And I've watched Jada, my own employees, my own daughter, leave the bar at night to go to her own car in assigned parking. It's dangerous. And I don't know what's going on. I don't have the answer. I don't pretend to know the answer, but it's something that really needs to be acknowledged because these downtown businesses, especially the smaller ones, they're on the second floor. They're leaving. Jada works all hours of the day. Expecting someone like that, or anyone, to leave their business and go to a parking garage and not feel safe is really unfortunate. So not only do we need to fix the parking and the fines, but we need to make what parking we do have safer, because it's not right now. It's a dangerous place to walk around Keene at night. I think also, although everyone knows I'm totally against the downtown project, that is coming, whether I like it or not, and I have to face it, as does everybody else. Downtown businesses are gonna suffer. Maybe just a suggestion, maybe we have a meeting and we discuss with the local businesses how we're gonna help all these folks park during this construction time, where they're gonna park, maybe there's a discount, maybe we can give them space somewhere in some lot. 9 times out of 10, the city's parking's empty. So maybe some of the city lots can be given to the downtown business owners. Jada has done a lot of work on this, more than I did the first, second, or third time I've come to the city about parking. I hope you appreciate her homework. She's contacted many different cities in New Hampshire to find out what they do, how to find a solution, and I hope all of you appreciate the work that she's put into it. Thank you.
Other members of the public? Members of the committee? Go ahead.
So I did want to share that I think a parking program for both residents and employees is a good idea. It's not a new idea, and it's actually in the parking strategic plan. Something that we did look at when Med was working in the parking division. It was one of the things we compared. We actually looked at Portsmouth, we looked at Concord, we looked at Durham, we looked at their rates, we looked at their fines, we looked at their hourly costs. And so I do think a parking program makes sense. And while we are moving forward with the downtown project, it's probably a good time to revamp the parking system for both employees and residents.
Just one more point. We do have parking available for employees currently, off-street.
Correct. And the other thing that was in the strategic parking plan is an evaluation of enforcement. And this is something we're going to be talking about again. It's been recommended for several years now that enforcement of parking go into the evening. Because that is when the majority of people are parking. And so I think that's something we also need to look at when we look at revamping a parking program in general. And I do also know that coming through the process, they are also looking at neighborhood parking programs as well.
Can I add on to that?
Hang on.
Mm-hmm.
I'll come back to you.
Thank you.
I'm okay with her going in the,
All right.
I was just gonna compliment you because you did a phenomenal amount of, you did a phenomenal amount of homework.
Thank you.
And became very prepared, and I think you made some valid points, and I'm really happy to hear from the city manager that we're already working on a parking program, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank
And-
you so much. I think that adding evening enforcement is the opposite of what I'm trying to do here. I think that as citizens and as business owner, I can total up and send you an email of how much money I've spent on parking, and I think that the tickets are already too high. I think that the parking enforcement for a mile radius of what we do have in Keene, we have 3 officers at times in a mile radius, and they have apps that tell them when meters are already run out. And there's no community there. What we see as business owners and residents when we look at the parking division is a villain. And that's just being honest, is that people that work for the parking division, the only one that has made an effort to reach out a hand to the community and create a relationship with us is, I think his name is Brian, the ticketing agent. Brian has come into businesses asking, and he's like, I see that the meters run out, you might be doing something. Is anyone, that's how a community should run. It shouldn't be nameless, faceless, except for when you look at it, you're like Jane or Lynn. Not pointing anyone out, I'm just saying that I park there every day. They know my license plate probably by name, by heart right now. And they have never smiled at me. They've never had a conversation with me. I mean, I understand that previous things that have happened to the parking division, for example, Keene Nights, was horrible.
But at a certain point, you have to reach out a hand. And even right now, take an example, the police department. People don't really love police right now, but they still make their rounds. They still try to connect with the community. And that means more to us than people walking around, giving tickets, giving tickets, and just going about their day. I think that there should be, if we're going to be a small town and we're going to be proud of working downtown, it needs to start with our city government. And I can say if things don't get better, I think that there's more and more businesses moving away from downtown, and I plan on doing it myself if this doesn't get better.
Thank you.
Can I just add, we have some great people working in the parking department, and they have made a lot of strides over the last few years with Med overseeing that division, and then we brought on Chelsea, and now Rebecca is involved. It's never fun to give out a ticket, and the example of police, the same thing, it's usually not fun, but I do think they have made a lot of efforts to be more engaging. I think there's a lot more we can do in terms of looking at the parking system as a whole, and the reason the hours of parking enforcement is currently being discussed is because the council created a change in the parking ordinance that now allows on-street parking, and it was done for the residents who live downtown to park overnight. And as a result of that, we are now getting residents parking in front of businesses before the businesses start. So the restaurants in the evening are now seeing cars parked there. So these are all conversations we have to have and somehow strike a balance that works for everyone.
And we have to recognize that the real underlying principle of parking is to turn over the activity in the downtown. Is that you can't park in the same spot all day and expect that customers are going to be able to park. So that's the issue we face, as does every other community. So balancing it all becomes the challenge for everybody, no matter the person giving out the ticket or those who are managing it. Counselor.
Yes. Well, we're talking about the parking and that it's in the works and everybody's trying to come up with the best idea. The part that really concerns me, it's just not parking, it's safe parking. The trail that we had, the bike path that was next to the company that makes the school furniture, they had plenty of trees, and a lot of our homeless people lived in those trees. And once the trees were all cut down, the fence was put up where the 100-night shelter is. They cut all down those trees. The people are moving other places in the city. You are correct. There are more people staying in the parking garage. Even if during the day there's no one there, you can look at the stuff they leave back in the parking garage. And yeah, I would not want to go in the parking garage during the night to get my car. And whether we want to admit it or not, the homeless rate is going up much higher. And not all of them, some have mental illness, some of them just don't want to come in for help, and they want to stay outside. And if it's raining or snowing, they're in the parking garage. They got no other choice. And as we had in the past, when we had an economic downturn before, the police used to come because one of our big problems was people were breaking into cars, spending the night. And so that's a tough issue. And if it's not safe, if people don't feel safe, they're not coming downtown, they're not gonna go shopping. So all the fixing everybody's parking problem will not be, it's not the number one concern, it's making that area safe for people to go.
Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's going to end up being a question for the city manager. The idea of some sort of employee parking program or some parking program for the citizenry definitely makes sense to me. Interested in a timeline for when we might be able to see something in front of us. Is it going to come as a package for the entire parking thing, or can we see these maybe individually as the department kind of figures out what a program?
You've been seeing them individually. The first one was this overnight parking in the downtown to accommodate residents in the winter. In the past, beginning on November 1st, everyone would need to move off the streets by 2 a.m. in the morning, and now it's by snow emergency. That was the first ordinance change that was requested and put through the system. Right now, we are working on a couple more that's coming through the system. One addresses the summertime because there's sections of the code that doesn't allow overnight parking in the summer. And then another is coming in to address June 19th, which was something the council wanted to address. So those three are making their way through the process at this time. Next, we are working on flexibility related to the zones. So, and Rebecca's probably better to talk to this than I am, but one of the other requests that came in from council was to consider being able to create more flexibility when people put money into whether it's a meter or a pay station. Right now, you're limited by zone, and you might park for a while, and still have time left on that meter or on the kiosk, but then move to another location and have to pay again. So we have been looking at the whole system, and I think with the downtown project, it'll be a great opportunity for us to really revamp parking and create a system that's both for residents and users. And Councilor Powers is absolutely right. It's about moving cars. That's why we have the tickets. Some people will park in the same spot all day, and when that happens, the system the space doesn't become available for other people, and so the ticketing system is really the only way that we've been able to manage that. And then, I guess lastly, I would mention all of the revenue that's generated from the parking system itself is actually what pays for it. So it pays for the garages, it pays for the enforcement. It's entirely paid for by the fees and fines received as part of the parking system.
Did you have?
I wasn't planning on asking this, but I want to make sure I'm correct. It also pays for the employees' wages, too, for the people that cover downtown?
It pays for parking enforcement, so all of
Yeah.
the parking-related activities, including maintenance and some maintenance of the parking areas and spaces in the downtown as well.
But it includes their,
Right, the enforcement, yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
yes. And one of the reasons 2 years ago you looked at the fines and fees is because the fund was not supporting itself, and so there needed to be an adjustment. And unfortunately, what's happened in the past is the city has gone long periods of times without making an adjustment, and then you make an adjustment and it's a larger percentage adjustment instead of making periodic smaller adjustments.
And to further clarify that, the parking fund is a non-tax item. It's outside the tax rate. Self-sustaining to maintain the parking in the parking areas. Another one?
I just sort of wanted to make one general statement, is like, we're a city and we're really going through growing pains, and we're starting to see the things that big cities see, like more crime and more drugs and more, and then lack of parking, or we're growing and changing and trying to adapt. But I do want to mention, and I kind of wish Med was here, because he's a great historian, and unfortunately, I'd have to look it up to recall it all, but quite a while ago, like years ago, and I don't even know if it might have been before I was even on council, I know that there was some of these same issues happening in the Commercial Street parking lot, and Gina Hamlet, who owned a couple of buildings, came to us because there were concerns about safety, and there was a women's gym, and the women didn't feel comfortable going to the gym at night. a lot of what that we're talking about, I remember hearing back then about employee or business owners and where they can park, and then where, you know, other people were taking up the spaces. I wish, because I don't know how we addressed it, but we did resolve it. We did improve it, and I know one of them was more lights. I just can't remember all of it, and I wish, like, one of our historians were here.
And unfortunately, I wasn't here either, but I do recognize, we've talked about this on many occasions, the homeless situation is creating a variety of issues. Parking garage is just one of the issues. And as we grow at our shelters, we do see more homeless. And I don't want to get onto my soapbox about this because it's frustrating. But basically, you know, if you're the way that the state manages homelessness is they call people through 211, and if you've got a vacant bed, they send them there if you're taking money from the state for your shelter. And so we can build more beds and try to get people to come in, but we will just have more homeless people from everywhere. And until the state fixes the way that they address homelessness, it's going to be really difficult for us to manage. And over the last couple of years, we have been addressing encampments, which I think is what you were talking about, Councilor Roberts, is, you know, we've had some really large encampments in the city, for one of them for decades behind Hannaford's, and it wasn't until recently that that encampment had been addressed and cleaned up, and we've taken out tons of trash and worked with multiple property owners to have those encampments cleaned up. And as a result of that, I came to the city council and asked for more money because we were putting more people up, but that was the right thing to do. And we have less of that now than we did a couple of years ago. That if you look around to the places that used to have these really large encampments, they're no longer there. It's taking a lot of effort to maintain that, but it's not going to eliminate people going into finding different places, whether it's behind a dumpster, in a dumpster, it's a very complex issue, and I think it's something we're going to have to continue to work with. I know that the neighborhood near 100 Nights was concerned of the same things because of increased activity on the trail and increased activity over in that neighborhood in general. And they've been talking with us and with the shelter about ways to address it. But it's a very, you know, I think we just have to keep finding ways to make improvements. We did make a change to the state law with the help of Senator Fenton a year ago that now allows us to bill other communities that are sending their residents here. We do have another bill that I have asked Senator Fenton to put forward this year that would help us with some of the other welfare offices in the state and how they're managing welfare and denying their applications. And so, honestly, I think we just have to keep finding ways to address these issues, and you know, it's going to be a long time before we make significant progress, but we really need more help at the state level to address the homeless issue.
So one other thing is, like, you know, it is on our radar, and there's planning going on, conversations going on, but I'm wondering if there's something that we can do more immediately so that business owners like yourself feel safer. Like, is there something that we could do more immediately? Because the other stuff is like long-term and is going to require, you know, listening sessions and planning and research.
Political pressure at the state.
Yeah.
So what we will do is, and what we've done in the past, is take a look at lighting. Unfortunately, I can't tell you I'm going to be able to send the police there more often. It's, you know, we've talked about this. We're always short. We're, I don't know, Beth would know the number changes. It's usually 8, 9 officers short. We've done a variety of things to recruit new police officers. We are competitive in our wages. We've made bonuses. But it's still just very difficult to recruit police in general. So policing is not going to be able to solve this entirely. I sent a message while we were here to the chief to say, we need to try to step it up and put it on our directed patrols, which I know we already are, but I don't want to give a false expectation that that's going to change it, because we just don't have the capacity to do it as often as we need to. But we'll definitely look for lighting and other solutions that we might be able to put in place more quickly. Yeah.
Real quick, this is might a little bit off, but it may. For example, Grove Street. A lot of the neighbors, my wife yells at me every time in the morning, in the afternoon, because I can go and say, oh, meals being served, and we see a whole bunch of, so there's a lot of people who live there are actually changing their habits because they don't feel safe going out. We've never had problems with the people going, but people come on bikes, motorbikes, they're just walking back and forth. I don't know where they're coming from. They're coming from other, I think the row of houses, the old store. But that's the same thing people are feeling when they're going to the parking lot, so they have to readjust their timing and stuff.
Yeah, if I can just also add to that, we see it here in the parking garage as well. I leave late at night. We see sometimes homeless people out there. We've picked up, things that are out there in the garage. It's not, we're not oblivious to it. We see it and we feel it as well. We see it on the trails. I live near the trail. I walk the trails with my dog often, and you see it. And all we can do is continue to try to make improvements and open to ideas on how to address the overall homelessness, if anyone has any
But the difference
suggestions.
between you and us, as in the business owners of Keene, is that we have to pay for that parking. And we get penalized for wanting to feel safe and wanting to park closer to our businesses. You're talking about keeping us safe. I'm telling you how to keep us safe. I'm telling you that there's side parking, there's different ways of going about it to where you can have people feel more safe on those side streets, the winter streets, the court streets, all those veins. I understand not parking downtown around the circle, but I've actually looked at the numbers for crime in Keene, and since last year it has gone up significantly, and it's continued to go up almost every month. And assault specifically. We've had more shootings, we've had more stabbings, and that doesn't make me feel any better. And as Mr. Roberts said, it brings less people to downtown, and as Mr. Powers said, we need turnover downtown. We're talking about turnover in an economy that was 2019 turnover. When we were in a booming Keene downtown, where you have a lot of businesses, a lot of people coming in, we're not having that anymore. Ever since 2020, COVID, we're not seeing that, and especially with the enforcement that Keene's ticketing officers are dishing out, we have had emails come to us being like, I love downtown business, but I'm not going down there because of the ticketing agents. And which that means is that we have less businesses opening downtown, it's gonna be a ghost town if this keeps going on. And we would need less turnover. We're ticketing at the rate of 2019. We don't need the turnover of 2019. The people that are repeat offenders, if you look at the number of repeat offenders, if you look at that list of license plates, you are repeat giving tickets to people that are the backbone of your community. You're giving it to residents that are trying to support downtown, but most importantly, you're giving it to downtown business and business owners. We have given our heart and souls into our small businesses, and you guys, no offense, it seems like it's more about money than safety. It's more about money than community. And that's coming from someone, I'm new to this. I'm new to talking to you fine folks, and I hope that you guys do not have that mentality. And when I come in here, and I hope that me having short notice of 5 days that this meeting was happening wasn't intentional.
that more business owners wouldn't come and have time off. I didn't have time off. I had to move clients. It's close to Thanksgiving. I'm booking out 4 weeks in advance. I had to move clients, and people have stressed to me that they are working, their wait staff, they're in the middle of working in their businesses, and they couldn't make it, but this is an important subject to them. But number one for us is our businesses. And the way that things are going about right now, we can say we're thinking about, we're talking about, it's in the works. Yeah, but this has been an ongoing problem for years. Years. And I'm hoping that we do see change when downtown business will suffer, and it is already.
Okay, thank you
That's
very
where I
much.
close.
We've covered a wide variety around the parking ticket.
Thank
It's
you.
funny how things
Good conversation,
come together.
folks.
Rebecca, as you get up, I want to just point out that we have renovated several parking garages and tripled the lighting, probably violating our own illumination rules. And I'm sure that Rebecca's tucked this one on her little list, that she'll go around with folks or have folks go around and look at the lighting in the other places. But we've got to recognize that a lot of places we're talking about are private property, and we only have a certain amount of authority over it. But all these points are valid, all are points that are being worked on in certain ways, and we are looking at the downtown. It's the most important part. It's what drives this city.
So
And
don't hurt it, please.
thank you. Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am.
So there's a lot I could say, but honestly, I just want to clarify a couple of things that I think will help everybody. I also want to say thank you. I know what it's like to walk around downtown at night. We all work, we're all here now. We were here till almost 10 o'clock last night, so we understand, and you did your homework, and that's really great when somebody comes in after they do their homework. You made a lot of calls, I appreciate that. So I'm gonna just clarify a couple of things, the way the app works. When the techs are out and they're looking at people's license plates and deciding who gets a ticket and who doesn't, the technology required to know from the app whose payment has expired is very expensive, and we don't have it, okay? So the way that it works is our techs are going out and they are looking at a license plate number, and they're looking at a list of license plate numbers. So they don't know until they look up a license plate number whether or not that has expired. There is technology out there that could send us a message that says, hey, parking spot number 27 on this street paid 2 hours ago and they are now expired, but it's very expensive and we don't have it because it requires vehicle detection technology. As far as meters go, unfortunately, as you've all heard before, those parking meters, we can't get them anymore. We have thankfully a small inventory of meters that we have taken off the street so that if we have one that breaks, we can replace it with something we have in inventory. But they're very old tech. Many communities don't use them anymore, so we can't just go out and buy a couple hundred meters. And then I would encourage the public and the council to assume nothing and ask a lot of questions. Because when you make a decision about parking, it's a big game of dominoes, okay? So what I mean by that is if we change the hours of parking or if we change a rate, it affects revenue, it affects expenses, it affects businesses and their hours that they're open and whether or not their customers can find parking, whether or not their employees can find parking, what days and nights these lots are open and those spaces are open. So I really hope that everybody will ask questions if you have them. We're looking right now at how much revenue we're going to lose from not giving tickets in the winter months for people who were parking on the street and getting ticketed before, and we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars. So we have to take all of that into account. There are communities that provide free or low-cost parking to employees and residents, and that's a great thing to provide. It's not free, it's funded by property tax in many communities. So the property taxpayers are paying to make those parking spaces, to paint those parking spaces, to enforce those parking spaces, whatever it may be. In our community, we don't do that. There is no property tax impact on what we pay to install and maintain those parking spaces and to enforce them. So it's like I said, please ask. If you have questions or you have assumptions, please bring them up so that we can do the study and bring you back the facts.
I do have a question on what you said, though.
That's through the chair.
Sorry. When you said you see it from the app, you can tell when someone's meter ran out, or someone's license plate, how much they paid for ran out. In my and many others' experience, if one of my barbers, he has dyslexia, and so when he types in right where we are, 7710 is the front parking, 7701 is Winter Street parking, and on the app it should say that his parking or his license plate number is still valid, but we continuously get tickets when we are trying to pay for parking in a rush, and it should say that we have it's in good standing, and we still have time in our meters, but we get a ticket, and then we call up and we're like, hey, I paid for this meter and this ticket, I still have 30 minutes left, and we're told, SOL, sorry, that's your fault, that's your bad, which I think is, it's not okay, especially when we did pay for that parking, and you can see it.
I'll just say that I've learned a lot about parking in the last 6 months. And we are constantly having people come in and say, here's my receipt. I actually typed in the wrong plate number, but I paid. And in those cases, that's just one example. We'll say, no problem. We'll void that ticket. We can see that you paid. Some people put in their spouse's license plate number by mistake, or they typed in the wrong zone, but they paid for parking. And the team in parking is very good about showing mercy in those situations. But if there's a situation, because I haven't seen it, where someone has paid for parking and they've gotten a ticket. If that's the case, Chelsea is very good about looking into the situation and making it right. So if that's happening, we want to know about it.
One more.
Every time I think, and I can say another experience is that, and this is actually it kind of hurts me a little bit thinking about it, because I know somebody, and I wish they were here right now, but it was short notice, and they expressed to me, basically in tears, that they are a single mom, grandmother, taking care of a family. They forgot to pay their parking tickets, and it got up to $500. And I understand you live what you did. But when she came to the city and was like, can you just reduce it down a little bit? I can't afford this. I can't register my car. I can't pay for groceries this week. They told her, I helped you once before. So when you call up on the phone and mistakes happen, people are human. But you're told by your city and a place that you live that, well, sucks to be you, kind of really hits home. And again, the community morale, you start to lose faith in it a little bit.
You got some choices.
I'd like to speak one more time. Is there someone ahead? Oh, Casey. Oh, sorry. I didn't see her. She's behind me.
Hi, my name's Casey Meyer-Rose. I'm actually one of the owners of Luca's Mediterranean Cafe next door. And I would like to point out, I appreciate the fact that we are working on solutions for parking. But as a business owner in downtown, I actually lease through the city. Initially, when I was leasing through the city, my parking spot was included in that lease. I have two separate spaces through the city and then one through Keene Housing that I rent. That is no longer the case anymore, even with renting through the city, that I have an allotted space out back. I've sent a couple emails. I've talked to the parking office about this. I've been really patient in trying to figure it out. I've been spoken with some of the council members, which I think was already passed on, because I had a very long conversation with one of them about the zones. I've grown up in large cities. I'm originally from the Bay Area of California. I worked in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for many years. The issue of city parking is nothing new to me. I've dealt with it all over the place. But one thing that is very true, and I think Jada did a really good job pointing that out, is that in every city that I've had to deal with in the past, as a business owner or employee of a downtown business, there is almost always some sort of reduced parking price, some sort of free lot that is in a safe area. I understand we have struggles with that right now. But the business owners and the employees are usually the first people that are taken care of by the city parking offices. My experience here in Keene itself hasn't always been super negative, but there have been times where I have gone up to the office and, for example, re-signing the lease without realizing that our parking spots were removed from it. I kept getting ticketed, but still, thought the permit was there. Chelsea was able to work with me at that point in time. We were able to resolve everything. But there have also been instances where I employ a lot of people who are single parents, partially handicapped is a big one, or just young people in general. The restaurant industry is literally built on people who have to work weird hours, strange schedules, stuff like that. I think the issue of extending the payments for parking into the night would be incredibly detrimental to the restaurant industry. I get that overnight parking is gone now, and we can't be sure that people who lived downtown aren't going to park in those places. But I would suggest maybe looking for a designated zone for people who live downtown, and maybe keeping just a chunk of Main Street closed off for overnight parking. I think that could do a lot for the restaurants. We're all pretty close together, and I think most of us are usually willing to help each other out in understanding that. I don't think extending the hours in which we have to pay would be helpful at all. There are also, servers on average make between $3.27 an hour or $7 an hour, depending on what position that they're working in the restaurant. They survive solely on tips. Businesses are struggling all over the place right now. The restaurant industry got hit so hard with COVID. I would love to be able to pay all of my employees $20 an hour and make sure that they could all pay for all of their bills, but it's not a reality in the world that we live in at this moment. And I have people who have bad knees, bad ankles, parking all the way down on Spring Street so that they can walk in without having to go out and pay meters, because when they're in the middle of a lunch rush and their parking meter runs out because all of the zones are 2-hour parking and there's only 5 spots that are usually open out back for people to park in for 4 hours, they can't get out to their meter when they've got 7 tables and a bunch of other stuff that has to be done. And so they're getting ticketed. They're going up to the parking office. They're saying, I was in the middle of a shift, I wasn't able to get out there. And the parking office is sometimes giving answers of, well, you're supposed to move your car after 2 hours anyway, or I can't help you if you didn't get out to the meter. There has to be some sort of medium that we come to where we can figure out what works for business owners, what works for employees, and what keeps the parking office going. The turnover in parking in downtown Keene is important. If I have a table that sits for 4 hours in a restaurant, I have a huge problem. If you have somebody that sits for 4 hours in a parking spot, I can understand how that would be a problem. But we don't have very many areas where downtown employees can actually park for a full day of parking and get out of work at 11 o'clock and be able to walk safely with a large sum of cash on them. I've had employees ask me to keep their cash tips in a safe overnight for them to come back and pick up in the morning because they're walking down to the Gilboa Avenue lot. It's not safe. It's not working for the downtown businesses. It does need to be changed, and I think with the issue for business owners and employees, if I were to urge anything right now, that is what needs to be addressed first and foremost. We have to figure it out. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think we've heard all the issues. Are you,
I'm gonna stand up anyway.
don't repeat yourself now.
It's not. I wanted to thank Councilor Roberts for recognizing that, I guess, for me, the bigger point is making the parking that we do have safe. So that's huge. And to the city manager, acknowledging that we don't have enough police enforcement right now. And I don't know the reason. I know there's been all kinds of incentives. I don't know that competitive is the word, because I do try to keep track of why we're so low on firemen and police, because those are the two things we kind of desperately need. I certainly would suggest, on top of all of this, that we really look into, I don't know, giving them higher wages or something that's a lot more appeasing, because we can't go without them in order to keep our city safe from the homeless. Making our parking or whatever we're doing, we need to at least keep our city safe. That, to me, that's most important. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee?
I would just comment that we've discussed, we've had a lot of discussions about the police, and we've been really working on that. The city manager's spoken to council, and we've spoken to her several meetings regarding a shortage and incentives. And I just want to point out that it's a nationwide trend, unfortunately.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just thinking ahead to the motion. I think rather than what's maybe suggested here, it might be a good idea just to actually refer this to the city manager to then bring back some proposals to us at a later date.
Is that your motion? Whose turn is it?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Seconded?
There you go.
Any further discussion? All right, roll call.
Nope, he's not here.
Well, he may be listening. Yeah. Well, let's do it. Roll call, start.
Yes.
Oh, he's back.
Yes.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
I hope so.
All right. We still have a quorum here. And the next item, the city clerk.
Actually, I meant to suggest this is coming from the city attorney, so so I'm gonna let him lead off, and I'll sort of add some comments about maybe how this all plays out at a council meeting, if you're interested.
You two like each other, I know, so get together.
No, Patty and I have been dealing with this for quite some time, sort of tag teaming on it. Anyway, the backstory on this, you may recall from, I think it was 2013, last time we took a look at this. There was a statutory change to RSA 91A, which I actually went up and testified on. The statutory change basically laid out two paths for municipalities to review and release non-public minutes. One path was you have a policy in place and then you follow the policy. And the second path was if you don't have a policy in place, then you follow the statutory requirement, which was, as it's stated in here, that you have to the review shall occur no more than 10 years from the last time the public body voted to prevent the minutes from being subject to public disclosure. We decided to do a little bit of a hybrid of this. Rather than just rely on the statutory language, we had a policy in place with respect to the review of the minutes in this 10-year period, but also a more recent review of non-public minutes that may be subject to release. What we discovered in that, as you can see in the background minutes that you have, when we're dealing with non-public matters, sometimes the non-public minutes can contain pretty relevant information to the reason why you were in a non-public session, but the underlying reason for the non-public session may or may not be still valid. So the problem with releasing the minutes is that it could also include information that shouldn't be released. and sometimes it can be hard to make that determination. So what we are proposing this evening is to sort of revisit the policy a little bit and to basically specifically state that in January of every year, we will review we will place a review to the city council, which is required now presently under the statute, the minutes from the 10 years previous. So in 2015 next year, we would do like 2025, or in 2014 we would do 2014, that sort of thing. So we're requesting that change be within the policy. So that way, we're pretty far away from whatever event may have happened. And this could especially come up in the context of sort of privacy interest issues, that the farther you get away, the privacy interest usually declines some. But having said that, I would tell you that there are some nuances in the statute. Even though we would like to have this policy in place, there may be times when we have to come to the city council and say, in this particular instance, we have to review whether or not this should be released sooner than 10 years. But the general policy would be the 10-year period at this point. So that's what the proposal is in front of you. We have prepared a motion to that effect at this point, with that caveat that I just explained, that if we do have to come to you outside of a 10-year period, don't be surprised, sometimes that happens.
Questions up here? Thank you. Members of the public? I lost the public, so. All right, whose motion is it?
Well, Patty may want to, I think, give you some.
Well, I think probably the attorney and the manager we need to sort of regroup. But how I envision this happening is that at a council meeting, you will be provided the series of minutes from that particular year. So in the January of 2025, we'll be looking back at the 2015 set of minutes. And I think I've looked at them recently, and I think there's probably less than a dozen. We will be asking you you will receive those in printed form. We'll be asking we'll be looking to the attorney to sort of give his perspective on whether they need to be retained or released. And we'll be looking for the council to take positions on those. We always ask you not to be curious, not to ask more questions. Most of you won't have been here 10 years ago, so maybe you might be curious about it, but that's not the purpose of what we're doing. So we hope to have sort of a very organized and very efficient process, and that we not sort of go offline with wanting to understand an issue. So I think the 10 years is going to be critical. And so I think that really was sort of the devil that we all learned very clearly, that this cannot be very current minutes and have it be successful. In addition to that, I'd like to encourage us that we continue to look for a legislative change, because bringing these things to the governing body is difficult. It is time-consuming, and it would be far more efficient if this was an administrative decision to release. And so I think that we've spoken to our senator in hopes that he can introduce an LSR. And Tom's testimony before the Senate committee was well received. It makes us think that perhaps this sort of fell through the cracks, because I think it did have the support of the committee, that they saw the wisdom of the administrative release, but somehow or another it didn't get in the final bill. So do think we need to try that one again.
Mike, did you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only concern I have with the timeline as described is that every other January, you're going to have potentially a batch of brand new counselors that are having to figure out in their first or second meeting what this means. The only concern I have, it's not a no for me, it's just something to think about.
Thank you.
We did think about that. December is a difficult one as well, though, because you're thinking about the Christmas holidays, and there's always a last-minute thing to get all this business done at the end of the year. But certainly, we'll be looking for this to happen at the beginning of every year.
But that's what we get paid to do, is legislate. Paper copies, We can't automate it? We can't?
You know, it's just too risky that every time we try to use SharePoint in this room, there's always some counselor, maybe just a few, that do not have that online access. So I know that Andrew Mueller would be very disappointed to hear me say this, but I think we need to just stick with papers. It's fail-safe.
Okay. Any further discussion up here? Motion, please.
Okay. Move to recommend that the city council amend its previous adopted policy on the release of non-public minutes to statutory obligation under RSA 91-A to review previously adopted non-public minutes for a determination as to whether the circumstances for sealing the non-public minutes no longer apply, and that such review and determination of the release occur annually in January of the 10th year from the year in which the non-public minutes were sealed.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, starting down here.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item. Solid waste.
Solid waste. Duncan Watson, Assistant Public Works Director. Here tonight to talk to you about the RFP we issued back in September. In September 24, we issued RFP 02-2505, which was for transportation and disposal of waste from the city's transfer station, which, by the way, is currently under reconstruction from the fire damage we incurred in April. So we should be back in whole right after the new year. But we're not using that transfer station at the moment while they're doing the repair work. But when we get it repaired, we'll be back using it. And then our intention is to negotiate a contract with Waste Management, with whom we've been doing business with for 17 years successfully. We do believe that we have some negotiation that we can successfully conclude and start a new agreement with Waste Management to haul and dispose of our trash.
Okay, questions up here? Mike, question? All right.
Actually, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, how many bids did we receive? I don't have the background notes with me traveling here.
Thanks, Mike. Council Remy, we got one bid on that proposal, and I think the reason for that is because some of the other people that I expected to bid have their own transfer stations, and so they don't need another transfer station, and that's why I think they declined to bid. But I have not spoken specifically with some of the other haulers, but that's my working theory right now.
Thank you.
Motion, please.
Move to recommend the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to execute a contract with Waste Management New Hampshire to provide transportation and disposal services for refuse received at the Keene Transfer Station for a period of 5 years with options to renew for additional years beginning January 1st, 2025.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? In that case, roll call vote, starting down here.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
it's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Will?
Hey, good evening. Will Schaffman, GIS Coordinator. Also in front of you this evening to look for a favorable motion regarding our selection team's recommendation on on selection of a company to conduct our 2025 flyover for updates to the city base mapping for our GIS system. As mentioned, this was also an RFP in the background, 02-2501. The city received 3 bids. We're recommending that we actually go with Coursera International, Inc., and they actually conducted the previous flyover for us in 2020, and were found to be fiscally responsible and meet all of the criteria we're looking for. So I certainly would entertain any questions that you all have for me regarding that selection process, if you did have any.
Thank you. Any discussion here? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was hoping maybe you could just give a quick overview of some of the alts here. Like I see that we have our base bids for
Sure.
1 through 5, and then we have the 50 scale mapping, the wetlands, and for the LiDAR scope, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so in an effort to sort of do like apples to apples comparisons, it doesn't always work out. So that the bid alts get a little confusing because firms like want to respond in their own manner. The base bid was for 100 scale mapping, which the city currently has. This would be sort of like upping some accuracy levels on, planimetric features, which are like buildings, roadways, other features that we maintain in our system. Wetlands and infrared and LiDAR / the slope and hill shade. We have a slope model that helps us somewhat identify some regulatory areas and whatnot. And then, wetlands are just something that also, again, regulatory helps back that up. And then the one item that we did not get previously, but we were intending to, was sort of like upping the level of our capabilities with 3D GIS. That's what we're hoping for by putting that in with the downtown and the airport, which may assist in, the airport's got a lot going on in terms of lease areas and whatnot, trying to make that more attractive sort of as like a tool for the airport. And then obviously our downtown, we have a lot of changes going on, trying to give us a baseline for some 3D model there.
Other questions? So what will be the price of the contract?
So right now with everything, it looks like 90,000 is what Coursera's offering. The amount that we have available for funding through the CIP is 150,000 that was allocated. In getting some questions answered through these various vendors, some of the 3D modeling we're interested in having supported through this program might cost a little more, but obviously we have a directive not to exceed that budgeted amount.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Mike? Anything?
Nope, nothing on this one.
Okay.
My only question was I was curious if we'll get to go on the plane ride, but that was my only real
No, I never get to go on that plane ride. I think I'd have to,
Hang off the wing.
yeah.
I have a question for you.
Counselor?
So, I think it's the same thing, but like when you go on to the assessing site
Sure.
and you have those maps and there's like
Yep.
multi-layers, there's one year that had everything, like water lines and fences and all kinds of detail.
Sure.
Does that fall under this planimetrics?
Yeah, so that's all planimetric features. When you see those layers that you're able to tick on and off in the Access website, that's what hosts like all of that data and the overlay with like the parcel information. And you can also toggle, like our zoning and wards and such. Yeah, that's an update to all of those like building features and whatnot in there. So that the company that hosts that website gets copies of everything, including the imagery that's collected.
I'm sure it's costly, but I find it extremely effective because I'm going through some surveying right now, and those maps and meetings with lawyers and everything, and they're phenomenally helpful. I'm sure, like I said, there's lots of more expense to it, but it seems like it's a worthy.
Yeah, indeed. Again, trying to up the accuracy of some of this mapping that we have was what Councilor Lake was asking about, like what the bid alts meant. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish, is moving from 100 scale to potentially 50 scale mapping. It's just an
Thank you.
accuracy.
Go ahead.
Maybe just a follow-up, and this is kind of maybe a two-part question as well. So we have the bid currently at, I think it's 90,000 here.
Yep.
So we're well under budget, which I love to see there. Do we expect any other additional costs outside of the contract that we'd be placing here, like any other costs that we would incur? And then also you mentioned that there might be some additional 3D modeling that we might want to go after. Is that above and beyond the $1,000 that we have in the bid here? Would that be with another company? If you can elaborate on that.
Good questions. The first part, other than staff time and management of the contract and monitoring, like there's a process where they'll do the collection in the springtime, and then we receive pilot project information, go over it, make sure it looks good, send it back with QA/QC'd, having looked at it, saying, yes, this looks good. No, you need to fix some of this, whatnot. So outside of that, no other costs other than like my time, essentially. And then the second part was the 3D modeling situation, right? So the company mentioned we will be getting something that's 3D GIS in the form of the LiDAR point cloud, and the proposal says classified. So we'd technically be able to see like true color 3D rendering. There might be gaps in that just because of how the collection occurs, right? It's in a flight. If we wanted like a draped, colorized fabric over the extruded buildings, the company would come in possibly with a sub and do like LiDAR scanning around the buildings to get like that true like 3D view that sometimes you get anyway. We don't have numbers for that necessarily because I knew that we sort of had a little bit of wiggle room. So in negotiations that you'd be authorizing the manager to conduct with this company, we could feel that out a little bit, but we obviously know that we sort of have a hard cutoff of 150,000, and I'm not trying to reach that at all. Luckily, we have most of what we're looking for here at that most reasonable price. So we'll see what we can do. Hopefully, we'll get some better 3D deliverables for maybe a little bit more money, but not sure. We'll have to find out.
And how often do we do this?
So this full remap includes like topography, terrain modeling, everything. That happens every 10 years. There's an interim project that we're able to get in that council helped us approve for imagery updates, and then limited planimetrics, which we do also on a 10-year cycle, but it alternates every 5. So we did the interim one in 2020, and now we're doing a full remap like we did in 15 in 25, if that makes sense.
Yep, thank you. All right, ready for a motion?
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to negotiate and execute a contract with a selected firm, Coursera International, Inc., for their professional services, and should negotiations fail, allow for negotiations with the next highest ranked firms in order.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yes.
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 Thank you very much. Unanimous. Thanks, Will.
Thank you, councilors.
Duncan?
Daily double tonight. Duncan Watson, Assistant Public Works Director. In front of you, I believe you have a resolution, R 2024-37, which is to allocate some funds from the solid waste fund balance to the operating budget to convert a current contract employee or to a contract position from 10 hours a week to a full-time benefited position. This is due in part because the memo that was accompanying this resolution back in the council last week explained that we've been increasing the volume through the recycling center, but not the tonnage, and this is because of the changes in packaging, specifically plastic packaging. It now takes several plastic bottles to make the equivalent tonnage or weight of a single plastic bottle from just a few years ago. And this has just resulted in a lot more handling of material that we do on the processing line without increasing the actual tonnage going through there. In addition, as people have discovered all the services that we offer up at the Solid Waste Division, the traffic has increased fairly dramatically over the years, particularly over COVID period. And we're now handling somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 to 450 vehicles per day with that amount doubling or even tripling on a Saturday. And so in order to maintain the facility to the standards that we expect, bringing on some additional hours from a personnel standpoint would be beneficial to maintaining our facility in good working shape.
Okay. Questions up here? No. So, we've taken temporary, part-time employee, and converting it to a full-time position is basically what we're doing.
Yes.
Throughout the organizational chart. But this is the funding to get you through the rest of the current year.
That's correct, and we would just bring this through on a personnel standpoint through the regular operating budget in next year's fiscal budget.
All right, and as long as we're talking about financing, memory for those who are watching us, this too is a item that is funded through its fees. It's not tax dollars, so. But you get a guy that's still looking at every penny to make sure it's getting $1.50 for each buck he takes in. Need a motion?
Move to recommend the adoption of resolution R 2024-37.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks. And this is our last item, and it's tax deeds.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Mary Howe, the Finance Director, and I want to introduce tonight Karen Bell. She is the revenue collector downstairs. And first of all, I want to mention that Karen and the Deputy Maria Castellano have really stepped up to the plate and did a lot of work on the item that she's presenting to you this evening on the deeds, and just getting out there to all the property owners and working with them to get this list reduced to what she's presenting to you tonight. So I really think that, kudos to them and all of their hard work. And I know it's been a bit since we've been here to present. So the list was rather lengthy, but what they've presented tonight is just absolutely amazing and a lot of hard work.
No question?
Go. Excuse me. When I go down on the list, LORTIE, I double-checked and triple-checked. They seem to be a duplicate, even the number is exact.
The reason for that, Counselor, is that they owe for multiple years. And when
Okay.
I printed the list, it presented the same name with the same property, but it's for an additional year. So I tried to clean it up towards the end because we had, as Mary said, quite a significant list. And so, yes, I think a couple of them were doubled up on the list, so I apologize for that. However,
Yeah, everyone else was different.
Yeah,
Except for
yeah.
that one, so I just wanted to know the different
yes,
reason.
that's why. Deeding hasn't occurred since 2019, I believe that's what I was told, because of COVID. So there's multiple years in
Okay.
some of these properties.
So just a little bit more explanation. So in your packet, you'll see you have a couple of different categories because some of them we're asking for tax deed waivers on. And the reason for that is these are individuals that would have otherwise been moving forward in tax deeding, but our revenue office was very successful at getting payment arrangements with them. And so we need that authority from the council to be able to not move forward with tax deeding. Then the next category is the there's an explanation that there's the small category in the middle, that's the execution of tax deeds that's being recommended. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is it still 5, Karen?
It is not now. There's one person that actually came in yesterday and paid, and we spoke and came up with a payment arrangement. So there's 4 that I'm referring recommendation to for tax deed.
So we'll need to make an amendment then to the list as part of the motion. One of them will move up to a tax deed waiver. Which property, Karen?
Daniel Willis, it's the 4th one down.
Yeah.
So that's 31 Oriole. That will move up to tax deed waiver. And then there's a third category of properties that are currently in bankruptcy that don't require a motion of the council because legally we cannot move forward while they're in bankruptcy with tax deeding. And I do also want to give a lot of credit to Karen and Maria. This list was very long. You would have been very upset. It was a very long list moving forward to tax deeding, and they did a lot of work to get people on payment arrangements. And one of the very creative things that they came up with this year is putting a notice on the property. We were going to do door hangers, and we couldn't get the door hangers in time. There was miscommunication, and then, so they just posted on the property, and that got people in. They came in and they made their payment arrangements. And so even though we've sent them letters and certified letters and all the necessary required documentation, an actual letter being posted on their property got their attention, and that is really how they got this list narrowed down.
It was very successful, yeah.
Any further discussion up here? You want to take this in 2 motions, I believe?
Yes. But we should revise them a little bit. I want to make sure you have the motions that were prepared and sent up by the clerk's office, not the ones that are in your packet.
Can you turn on your microphone, please?
Yes. Sorry about that.
Oh, good, the ones on the desk? Yeah. So my suggestion would be on the first one, then on the waiver, to make it clear about what we just talked about, in the sentence that says, and the tax deed waivers be granted for the properties, comma, including 31 Oriole Avenue, and then continuing as follows.
Sorry, I don't have to shorthand.
You're a minute taker.
I had a computer for that.
It's yours.
I'm really happy and pleased that you and Maria were able to get this list down, but it worries me about how many people owe taxes and, expenses keep going up, and I just hope this list doesn't keep growing because they can't afford it. Move to recommend that it would be contrary to the public interest to take the following properties by tax deed at this time, and that tax deed waivers be granted for the properties, including 31 Oriole Ave, and continuing as follows, predicated upon further recommendations to the City Council after final review of the payment status of each account.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, committee? In that case, roll call?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes?
Yes.
Thank you, unanimous. And the second motion,
Which also requires a bit of revision, just to clarify. So it would be at the end of the motion, comma, excluding 31 Oriole Avenue.
you all set?
Move to recommend the execution of tax deeds for the following properties excluding 31 Oriole Avenue.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes?
Yep.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman.